Hello and welcome. My name is Adam Hill and I'm a SAP Principal Specialist Solution Architect at Amazon Web Services. I'm joined by Yuri Volonsko, the Director for Enterprise Applications and Architecture at Zalando, who are an European online fashion retailer headquartered in Berlin. In this session, we're going to cover how Zalando tracks business performance in near real time using SAP HANA and AWS data analytics services. So what are we going to cover in this session? Firstly, I'm going to give a brief history of how SAP and AWS have worked together for many years to innovate for our customers. And then I'll hand over to Yuri, who's going to provide a short overview on Zalando before he moves on to share details of the SAP Data Lake project at Zalando. And I really do think you'll find what Yuri has to share a very interesting story. So SAP and AWS have been innovating in the cloud for over a decade. And SAP have worked with AWS as a customer for 13 years. SAP use AWS to power many of their SaaS solutions, including SAP Analytics Cloud and SAP HANA Cloud. Now, AWS, we initially focused on delivering the best platform for our customers to run their SAP workloads, including providing the largest cloud-native HANA instances at 24 terabytes, support for scaling out S4 HANA up to 48 terabytes, and support for scaling out BW HANA up to 100 terabytes. But over the last few years, we've also started to focus on how we can help our customers not only reduce the TCO and improve the reliability from running SAP on AWS, but also bring innovation to their businesses from using the wider AWS services. So today, there are more than 5,000 active AWS customers running on SAP on AWS. And over half of these customers have already deployed SAP HANA-based solutions. Now on this slide, you'll see logos from customers from all over the world and all industries. And many of these customers, including Zalando, have gone beyond using AWS purely as a platform for running their SAP systems and have integrated the broader AWS services into these SAP systems. While the business case for migrating SAP workloads to AWS has been well proven, many customers are also looking to build stronger business cases from transforming their analytics capabilities. We hear firsthand from customers that they are looking at ways to tap into the SAP data along with the non-SAP data within their organizations. And they want to move to becoming a real-time data-driven enterprise. And this is where they can harness the power of SAP HANA and the data analytics services provided by AWS. We believe this approach enables an organization to reduce operational overheads and increase revenue growth, while keeping their SAP systems as a clean core and using the capabilities of AWS to innovate at pace. So now I would like to hand over to Yuri to describe the real-time data analytics solution that Zalando built.
Hello, Adam. Thank you very much. It is my very big pleasure to be today here with you in this virtual round. And indeed, this is my favorite technical event basically, and today I would like to give you a bit more insights about our success story. You know, reInvent is not a sales or marketing event, it's about sharing experiences with between partners, between customers. And today, after the successful launch of one of the biggest SAP installations in the world in summer of 2020, I would like to give you a bit of insights on how we are running our SAP workloads in AWS, why we see the benefits and where do we see the benefits. First of all, let me introduce Zalando a bit, because I think some of you might not know what kind of business model we are running and what we are doing. And in essence, what you can see here, we have around about 6.5 billion euros revenue in 2019. We have around 14,000 employees, mainly in Germany and some other European countries as well. And we are in 17 European countries online, and we have around 450,000 products which we are offering to our customers. And Zalando ships around 127 million sales orders per year to our customers. And with around about 38 million active customers across Europe, you can understand what kind of scale we are talking about. And being online fashion retailer and focusing on lifestyle, on fashion, and with deep involvement in all the technical challenges which this kind of scale can offer to us, I think our use case and how do we run SAP workloads in AWS can show where do we see the value and why we are doing what we are doing in AWS. And in my opinion, the way or the poor fact that we migrated to AWS with our SAP workloads several years ago, as you mentioned, it was back in 2016, this unlocked a lot of business value for us. And the way how we run the business, the way how we run our SAP systems, and the value which we can get out of this, it's unprecedented from my point of view. And I would like to talk about this success story a bit more in detail today. In general, you can split the value which we could get out of this migration from classical data center to AWS in two buckets. On one hand, you have business needs. On another hand, you have IT challenges and IT needs which you have to tackle. If you see what business expects from us, it will be so we have this overall Zalando strategy, and this tells us we would like to be a starting point for fashion. We have to deliver best-in-class experience to our customers, and to deliver these customer promises, we have to be and stay very agile organization. And being agile for business creates a lot of challenges on IT and technology side. So we have to balance this cost of scale. If you scale and if you in this hyperscale phase of the life cycle of your company, you have to pay strong attention to total cost of ownership of your IT systems. You have to understand how do you manage this complex IT systems. How can you support business needs with these agility requirements? How can you provide and show that you can also stay as agile as your business, also on IT side? And how can you support this scale which is required in nowadays? And if you see our contribution to the success of the company and how do we deploy SAP systems in AWS, you can see several buckets where we see main benefits by running our SAP workloads in AWS. It's mainly around business enablement, so what kind of business value we can unlock by doing this. It's about technology and innovation. So in technology, you unlock a lot of new innovations which wouldn't be available if you would stay in the classical data center. And also this layer of flexibility by deploying and running and implementing complex projects. As I mentioned earlier today, in summer, we launched one of the biggest SAP S/4HANA installations in the world. And the way how we migrated from a it was ECC instance on HANA as well, but we migrated from ECC to business to SAP S/4HANA system. And the way how we operated and designed this project, it was only possible because we deployed our systems in AWS. I will talk about this a bit later during the presentation, but these are the three main buckets which I would say are relevant for us to explore. Where do we see the value? How do we unlock this value? And why we did this. Just to give you an overall high-level picture where we are coming from. In Zalando, as a fashion retailer and as a pure online player, we are very focused on microservice-oriented architecture. So we have around 4,200 microservices which make this Zalando e-commerce platform. And this is on our left side, so this orange bucket. And this Zalando e-commerce platform, these are different systems split it between different AWS accounts. And on the right-hand side, you have financial systems, you have payment systems, you have analytics systems, you have some other support systems. And one of the challenges for us, how do we connect one big monolith like SAP to the microservice-oriented architectures? And the whole systems, these microservices or smaller systems, they are running in AWS as well. And on our side, we have one big account, and we deployed all the systems in one big account. And for us, the way how we connected them with each other, it's also like one of the key challenges which we had, and we utilized AWS technologies by implementing microservices towards SAP workloads as well. And from this big picture, if you say again where SAP systems are coming in place, I don't want to overwhelm you with this slide. It might be very complex for you on the first view, but for those of you who are deeply involved in SAP workloads, you will recognize one or another A system and B module which we are operating. So it's like if you zoom in this Zalando e-commerce platform, there are many different systems, microservices, and other services. They generate a lot of data. And we have integration hub. So the whole infrastructure which you see here is running on AWS, and also this SAP systems and other systems as well. So for us, we are like navigating inside of AWS account right now. And on the left side, you have many services which are generating a lot of data. On the other hand, you have SAP workloads represented with different modules which you can see. It's like also billing, revenue, innovation management, financial close systems, financial system, logistics system. So there are different activities which we have to run on our AWS and SAP workloads. And for that, we have to connect to these data sources and integrate this data from different accounts back to the SAP systems and in another way around. And our SAP workloads, you can theoretically split in transactional systems and analytical systems. So in the middle of this slide, you can see our transactional systems. On another hand, this is where the true value also coming in. This is data systems which we have on our side. So it's a combination of HANA platform, also Redshift. We have several business warehouse systems which are connected to Redshift, and this enables us to scale our infrastructure and integrate our SAP infrastructure, HANA platforms, with services which we have on AWS side as well. And this is once again more or less like very high level overview about our architecture, but it gives you a bit of understanding about the scale we are talking about. We need round about 250 servers which are running in this account to support only SAP workloads here. We have several transactional systems, basically ERP systems, several business warehouse systems, and also this analytical services from AWS. And what we did, we connected all the systems with each other so we can utilize and do this data monetization on our end as well, and also support business needs by integrating and moving the data based on the customer and based on the business needs. And one of the unique advantages which we get out of this architecture is so-called data tiering architecture, which we were able to implement. Because if you have 4,200 microservices which are generating this huge amount of data, one of the biggest challenges comes with scalability of this solution. And if you are talking about analytical use cases and analytical requirements which we have towards our systems, we have a choice. Either we stay with HANA platform completely, but as you know, HANA is pretty expensive. And yes, it offers a great performance, and it scales also in AWS as well, and pretty significant. And as we saw previously on Adam's slide, it's now supported up to 48 terabyte, but in some cases, it might be pretty expensive to scale HANA to this size. So in our particular case, we decided, okay, let's go for the hybrid data architecture. And to implement this hybrid data architecture, what we did, we took HANA layer as a speed layer, and we defined based on the data access, based on the how often certain data sets will be used, we defined between hot data, warm data, and cold data. And in our case, we decided, okay, because of the rich capabilities which HANA offers to us, because of the nice features which we can get out of this, we see this is as the fastest and most expensive layer which we have on our data architecture, and we move hot data towards the HANA. But we have also significant portion of data, like historical data or some non-SAP data which we have to onboard, or some data manipulation, some expensive data joins where we say, okay, before we move this to HANA, probably we can either offload historical data from HANA towards the Redshift, or we can store them only in AWS Redshift. And similar situation is happening with Amazon Athena, where we have same like with Redshift and HANA, we have smart data access. And by utilizing the smart data access, we can use Athena Redshift and Amazon Athena to point to the data lake which we have underneath of the whole data infrastructure. So we have data lake which sits on AWS in S3 buckets, and the way how we access this data is also very cost efficient from my point of view and from our point of view. So the users, they are going to the HANA layer, and because of the smart data access which we implemented, they can also utilize and see the data which are sitting in Redshift, and they can also see and utilize the data which are sitting in data lake as well. So what we do, we basically push down the SQL logic from HANA to data lake or to the Redshift. So we are not moving the data up to the HANA, we are rather utilizing this federated query execution logic which we have there. And by pushing this logic back to the data, we can keep our HANA not that big, so 12 terabyte is pretty significant size, but if we wouldn't have this architecture, we would need to scale our HANA even more. And this would increase our total cost of ownership for the reporting architecture as well. So this is what we call hybrid data architecture, and this unlocked a lot of possibilities and options for us to scale and address different business needs. And but it's not only it. I think once we migrated our SAP system to the AWS, we started only with very few services, but we saw the value pretty early by implementing and integrating SAP services and capabilities with what AWS offers to us. So right now, in 2020, we have around 38 or 36 AWS services which we are utilizing in our platform. Of course, the main services, they are still around compute and storage and database, but we also enable a lot of use cases by provisioning, for example, workspaces to our customer care agents sitting in different countries. And the way how we onboard customer care agents in different countries, it was like in the past much slower than if you compare it to the way how we deploy these new virtual machines to the end customers or to the end users sitting in different countries. So I think also end user computing enabled us a lot of use cases which we hadn't have before. Same as management, governance, or analytic use cases, or security and compliance services which we have on AWS. So for us, understanding what kind of value sits in each and every services and how can we combine these services together with AWS and SAP services, this is where we believe the true value comes into the place. Because there are some great services on SAP, there are some great services on AWS, and I think to say, okay, I think the smartest decisions and the biggest value comes if you can integrate all these services together. And this is what we did, and this is what we are pushing SAP, and this is where we are pushing AWS to integrate the services as well. And if you take another closer look on this hybrid data architecture, what we have in our site. So once again, you have different data sources. It's like ERP systems, Oracle databases, Exasol, S3 buckets. And for us, we have, on another hand, different business user types. It's business users, it's data scientists or management of our organization. And they need reports and they need analytic use cases to steer the business, to make smart decisions. And the faster they can get access to this data, the faster they can react on this data and on the trends which they observe, or they can keep the promises which they made and or to achieve some financial goals. I think it is also important to understand how you are performing in certain countries, in certain sales channels. And for us, it is extremely important to provide these insights to the business as fast as we can. And in our particular case, to support such use cases, we use this framework which you see on our site. So we have like integration hub, and we use several technologies like Informatica or Spark or Databricks, or smart data integration. These are the native services from Google, but it's depending if we are talking about transactional data onboarding or analytical data onboarding, we use a bit different services. But in analytical use cases, it's mainly Databricks which we are using. So we are connecting to different data sources which we have on our site, and with Databricks we extract this data and we place them on this landing zone. So it's like S3 buckets. And on this S3 buckets, we just take the raw data, we land them, so it's pretty fast. We have almost near real-time integration. And once this data on S3 buckets landed, we utilize Glue ETL, and from there we transform basically the data from raw data to the transformed format. And also we have this data preparation layer where we prepare the data, where we combine and enrich the data. We take SAP data, we take non-SAP data, we join them together, and on the serving layer, we have this Athena, which is the integration towards the data lake. We also have a Redshift layer where we store the warm data, and we have also HANA where we have hot data. And on consumption layer, we have certain analytical tools which are connected to the HANA, and through smart data access connection, which we establish from HANA to Redshift to Athena, we can basically see all the data coming from SAP workloads, but also from non-SAP workloads in an extreme fast manner. So we are talking about almost near real-time analytics capabilities which we enabled to our business. So this is the way how we support this hybrid architecture on our end. So if you see what kind of business value you can get out of these architectures or out of running SAP workloads in AWS, it's in our opinion significant reduction of TCO. I think it's not a secret that if you go for reserved instances and SAP workloads, you can plan them pretty good and well in advance, so you know what kind of workloads to expect. And we have almost 90% reserved instances utilization for our SAP workloads. Only sandboxes they are running on like on-demand instances. By doing these reserved instances, we were able to reduce our TCO significantly. Also by the way how we deploy the systems and the maintenance of the system and the speed how we deploy this all HANA databases, application layers, by running them in AWS, we also were able to reduce our maintenance tasks by 30%. And by doing this also, we enabled a lot of transformational business cases on our side, because we can create sandbox copies of the productive system. We can anonymize the data and enable a lot of use cases. So we can do this because if you have 12 terabyte instance, in the past it was extremely difficult for us to get a sandbox to do a complex scenarios to simulate something. And right now, with having this agility, we enabled a lot of business cases because now we are not limited by having this only one big box, because in the past it was pretty difficult for us to get access to another such a big box. And by having this flexibility on hardware side, we enabled a lot of great business transformation projects which we have on our side. Also about technical wins, if you see that nowadays we have around about 36 AWS services, which I mentioned in previous slides, where we integrated them. And by doing this, we enabled a lot of new business capabilities which were not available on the classical data centers. So I think this combination of SAP and AWS, this enabled a lot of innovation on the technological side for us as well. And we revolutionized the way how we operate the systems, because we have fully integrated monitoring. It's like a notification system, online monitoring, deployment of the systems. It's a very, very different approach which we are taking right now, comparing to the way how we operated our systems in the data centers. Plus, unlocking of these big data architectures and integrating data lake in the SAP world is also one of the values which we see. And right now we have several petabytes of the data which we have on our end, and having HANA and Redshift, we support more than 100 terabytes of data. So I think it's also significant scale which wouldn't be possible on classical data center, and the performance which we get out of this is also pretty significant. Plus also the project wins I mentioned earlier today probably deserve a dedicated another session, that we migrated to SAP S/4HANA. And I think this the way how we were able to support the project needs by the flexibility which we had because of fact that we have this flexibility on sandboxes. We created tens of sandboxes in parallel to test, upgrade, to test certain specific functionality on our end. So I think this flexibility on hardware side, flexibility on sandboxes, and this enabled us pretty significant to execute and to keep our timeline, because without that it would be difficult for us to deploy this project. And also this automated, and how fast we could able, or how fast we were able to deploy the systems, is also unique of the art. So in the past it took 2 to 3 weeks to deploy one sandbox systems. Now we were able to do it in less than 1 day. So it was very fast, and it's accelerated and secured the project success significantly. So overall, as you can see, it was it was like a game changer for us once we migrated to AWS. And I think there are a lot of other sessions which you can see and hear more about specific of one or another function. And please, if you have other questions, reach out to me. And thank you very much for listening. And thank you very much for joining this session.
So thank you, Yuri. That was a great insight into how Zalando have been able to use the native AWS services alongside SAP to bring value to their business. As Yuri mentioned, you'll see we also have a number of other SAP-related sessions as part of the agenda at reInvent this year, which I think you may find interesting. So all that's left for me to say is thank you on behalf of Yuri and myself for listening, and we hope you found the session interesting. And please do take time to complete the survey. Your feedback is really important to us, so thank you again.